If you've ever walked into a room full of family and felt like a shadow instead of a guest, this story might stay with you. Subscribe for more stories about quiet dignity and comment below. Have you ever been disrespected in front of everyone and stayed quiet? My name's Derek, and I raised my daughter alone from the moment she took her first breath. No mother in the delivery room, no co-parent, just me and a nurse who whispered, "You're doing great, Dad," while I cradled 6 pounds of new life. In my hands, terrified and completely in love. That was 6 years ago. I've missed sleep, skipped birthdays, juggled jobs, and learned how to braid hair in the rearview mirror. I've burned dinners, patched scraped knees, and become fluent in the language of bedtime fears and lunchtime giggles. I don't say any of that for pity. I say it because no one else ever did, especially not my brother. James is the kind of man who looks great in a suit, always has the right joke, always gets the applause. He's the firstborn, the favorite, the one who never forgets to remind people where he stands. When he got engaged, I was genuinely happy for him, despite our differences, despite our distance. I showed up to his engagement party with my daughter, in one hand and a small gift in the other. He didn't say thank you, just glanced at the box and said, "You didn't have to. I know things are tight." I laughed it off. Because that's what you do when people put salt in your tea and expect you to sip it. The wedding came fast. Big venue, big guest list, big expectations. I didn't make a fuss. I pressed my shirt. I bought my daughter a new dress with a little blue sash she twirled in front of the mirror for hours. But when I got the seating chart, I noticed something. Everyone had a +1. Everyone except me. I was seated at a corner table marked Family Overflow. And my daughter, she was placed at the kids' table across the room. I didn't complain, I just moved my chair next to hers when we arrived, because I don't go anywhere without her. And I wasn't about to start now. The reception was everything. James wanted spotlights, speeches, signature cocktails with pun names, and then he took the mic. He started with the usual jokes, a few teases about his groomsmen, a line or two about cold feet and lucky timing. Then he looked at me, smiled, and said, "And of course my little brother Derek's here tonight," holding it down, as a single dad, which basically means doing half the job and getting double the sympathy. Laughter, loud, echoing, from strangers, from a few cousins, even from our mother. My daughter looked up at me, confused. She didn't get the joke, neither did I. But I laughed quietly, because if I didn't, I might have cried. He kept going. I mean, seriously, Derek's got the easiest job here. 1 kid, no wife, no one to argue with, just a man in his minivan. Sounds like a dream, right? More laughter. I smiled. I smiled so hard my jaw hurt, because if I cracked just a little, my daughter would see it, and she didn't need to carry that. Not on someone else's wedding day. Not ever. But then, something happened. The bride. His bride stood up, walked to him, took the mic out of his hand and said, "James, I love you, but that's enough." Silence. Actual silence. She turned to the room, to me, and said, "Derek is not a punchline. He's a parent. He's the man who showed up to every family event with his daughter in his arms and dignity in his silence. He doesn't ask for help. He doesn't make excuses. He just loves. Louder than any joke ever could." And if you can't see the strength in that, then maybe you're not laughing at him. Maybe you're laughing to hide what you're afraid you'll never be. The room changed. James stood frozen, the smile wiped clean, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. The room held its breath. You could hear the clink of a fork being set down, a baby fussing in the back, the soft shuffle of someone shifting in their seat, but no one said a word. James stood frozen, still holding his empty hand like the mic might float back into it. The bride, Rachel, handed the mic to the DJ, smiled politely, then walked back to her seat like she hadn't just cracked the foundation of a perfect wedding reception. I didn't know what to do. My daughter tugged at my sleeve. "Dad," she whispered, "why did everyone laugh at us?" I knelt beside her, and for the first time I didn't sugarcoat it. They weren't laughing at us, baby. They were laughing because someone said something wrong, and they didn't know how to be brave enough to stop it. She nodded, her brows pulled together the way they did when she was figuring something out. Is it okay to tell someone to stop, even if everyone else is laughing? I looked at her, and my throat tightened. Yes, I said, especially then. She reached out and touched my cheek with her small hand. You didn't laugh, Dad. You were brave. I smiled. So were you. After dinner, people started getting up. Small groups forming, some heading for drinks, others toward the dance floor, pretending like nothing had happened. But something had. Rachel's words had shifted something in the room, and not just for me. A few cousins gave me soft nods. One uncle came over, patted my shoulder, then quietly walked away without saying a thing. It was enough. Anna, the cousin who used to babysit me, sat beside my daughter and said, "You look like a princess tonight." "Your daddy must be very proud." My daughter beamed. She looked over at me and said, "He is, he tells me every day." I stayed seated until most of the noise moved toward the DJ booth. Then I stood up, helped my daughter gather her crayons, and began walking toward the exit. That's when I heard his voice. "Derek." I turned. James was standing alone near the bar, tie loose, jacket off. His cheeks were red, not from champagne, but from something deeper. I didn't move toward him. He came to me, hands in his pockets. "You heading out?" I nodded. "It's been a long day." He glanced at my daughter, who was busy adjusting her sparkly shoes, then looked back at me. "I was trying to be funny," he said. "I know. But it wasn't." "No." Another beat of silence. He shifted, his weight like the floor had gotten slippery. "You've always been steady," he said, "even when everything in your life cracked open. And I've never known how to talk to that, so I talked around it. I didn't let him off easy. Talking around it is how people get hurt, James." He nodded. "You're right. I crossed a line. And Rachel, she saw it. Before I did." He paused. "Hell, she saw you." I looked at him. For the first time in years, I saw not my older brother, the one with the big laugh and bigger shadow, but just a man trying to find his way. Out of pride. I wasn't expecting her to say what she said, he admitted. Neither was I. But I'm glad she did. He looked down at the floor, then back up. "I'm sorry, Derek, for the joke, for all the small ones before it, for making you feel like less because I didn't understand what you were carrying. I could have stayed. Bitter? I could have listed every moment, but then my daughter wrapped her arms around my leg and looked up at both of us. "Is he your brother, Dad?" I nodded. She turned to James. "Did you say sorry?" James knelt. "I did. I mean it too." She tilted her head. "Okay, but no more mean jokes." James smiled, eyes glassy. "Deal." Then she looked at me. "Are we dancing before we go?" I laughed. "I think we have time for one." We walked back inside. I held her hand as we crossed the floor. James returned to his table, sat beside Rachel, kissed her forehead, with a gentleness I hadn't seen in him in years. The DJ played something slow. My daughter stepped onto my shoes like she always does. We swayed in a quiet corner of the dance floor, just the two of us, her small fingers gripping mine, her head on my stomach. I looked around the room. People were dancing again, but this time they looked different, like they'd seen something they couldn't unsee, like they'd finally understood what quiet love looks like when it gets tested. And stands anyway. When the song ended, we said our goodbyes. Rachel found me by the door. She hugged me. Tight. I meant every word, she whispered. "I know. You're a good man, Derek." I smiled. "I'm just a dad." Exactly. We drove home under a sky full of stars. My daughter fell asleep before we left the city limits, her hand still wrapped around my thumb, and as I looked at her in the rearview mirror, her curls lit by passing streetlights, I realized I wasn't just surviving fatherhood, I was living it. One hard day at a time, and no joke, no wedding speech, no brother's need to feel taller by making me smaller, could change that. We got home late that night. I carried her in from the car, her head slumped against my shoulder, one glittery shoe missing, and her little fist still clutching a napkin she'd drawn on during the reception. I laid her gently in bed without waking her. Tucked her in, kissed her forehead and turned off the light. Then I stood there for a moment, watching her breathe, the rise and fall of her chest, the way her lips stayed parted just slightly, like she was still in mid-sentence in a dream. That's when it hit me. I'd spent so long worrying about whether I was enough, for her, for the people watching, for the world that often labels single fathers like a broken sentence. But watching her sleep, surrounded by the love I'd built with my own two hands, I realized something that settled deep inside me, like a calm I hadn't felt in years. She's going to be okay, because she knows she's loved. Not the kind of love that needs to be performed, at parties or praised by relatives, but the kind that folds her blankets just right, packs her favorite snack in the lunchbox, and remembers that she likes the crust cut off her toast, except when she doesn't. That next morning, she woke me, up by jumping on the bed. "Dad, I forgot to tell you something." I opened one eye, smiled. "What's that?" "At the wedding, when you danced with me, I heard one of the ladies say, 'That's the best man in the room.'" I blinked. "Did she say why?" She shrugged, grinning. She said, "You can tell how good a man is by how he dances with his daughter." I let that sink in, then pulled her into the blankets and held her tight. Sometimes it takes a stranger to say what you didn't know you needed to hear. Later that week, I took her to school. We were waiting in the car, like always 10 minutes early because she liked watching the other kids arrive. "Dad," she said, swinging her backpack straps in rhythm with her words, "do you think I'm like Mom?" I glanced at her. She rarely brought up her mother. I never pushed. "I think you have her eyes," I said. "But your heart? That's all yours?" She was quiet for a second. "Do you think she would be proud of me?" I reached over and tucked a curl behind her ear. "I think she'd be proud. You became exactly who you were meant to be. And I think she'd be proud of how you're helping me be who I'm supposed to be too." Her smile was soft, full of something deeper than 6 years should carry, but she carried it with grace. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat down and wrote her a letter, not to give to her now, to give to her someday when she needs it. "My girl, there will be days when the world tries to tell you that your story started incomplete. But what they don't know is that we were never broken. We were just us. And every laugh you gave me, every question you asked, every night you crawled into my bed when the thunder was too loud, it built me into something stronger than I ever knew I could be. You are not missing anything. You are not a question mark. You are the answer. And if you ever wonder what kind of man to trust with your heart, find one who dances with his daughter, in front of a crowd even when his hands are shaking like I did." Love, Dad, I folded it, slipped it into a drawer, and I sat there in the quiet, finally realizing I didn't need anyone else to approve of the life I'd built. Not my brother, not my parents, not the strangers at weddings who only see the outside of what you carry. Because my daughter, she sees it all and still thinks I'm the best man in the room. The next Sunday, we visited Rachel and James. Yes, we did. Because forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing what not to carry forward. James met me at the door. He hugged me for the first time in years. It wasn't stiff or short. "Thanks for coming," he said. Rachel pulled my daughter aside and gave her a small wrapped box. Inside was a silver bracelet with a single word etched into the charm: brave. She wore it the rest of the day, and every time she caught me looking at it, she grinned. Later that evening, James and I sat outside as the women talked and the kids played with sidewalk chalk. "You were right," he said quietly. I raised an eyebrow. About the kind of man I wasn't being. Rachel helped me see it. Watching you helped me see it. I didn't say anything, because grace doesn't need credit, it just needs room. As the sun dipped behind the trees, my daughter ran over to me, chalk all over her dress and palms. "Come see," she said. I followed her to the driveway. She had drawn 3 stick figures, one tall, one small, one with a ponytail. A heart floated above them. "This is us," she said. "And you know what I called it?" "What?" She smiled. "Home." And just like that, I knew. I didn't need a wedding toast or applause or a stage. I just needed her. And the life we made. And the truth that being a single dad didn't make me half of anything. It made me whole in ways the world will never fully understand. But she does. And that's all that matters. It's strange how healing doesn't always happen in a straight line. Sometimes it shows up in the smallest moments, A text from my brother that doesn't ask for anything, just says, "You. Good?" Or Rachel tagging me in a photo of my daughter from the wedding with the caption, "Strongest heart in the room." It had been a few weeks since the reception, and slowly the weight of that night was beginning to lift. Not because it had been forgotten, but because it had been faced. My daughter started sleeping through the night again. I didn't realize how long she'd been waking up until she stopped. No more quiet footsteps down the hall. No more whispers at 2 a.m. asking, "Can I stay with you?" One morning, as we were brushing our teeth, she said, "Dad, you don't look tired anymore." I smiled into the mirror. Guess that means we're both getting stronger. A few days later, I got an unexpected call from James. "Hey," he said, "I know this is last minute, but we're doing a barbecue this Saturday. I'd love for you to come." I hesitated. He picked up on it right away. No pressure. Just, "I want my niece there, and her dad." I paused. "Are we going to pretend like everything's fine?" "No," he said quickly. "We're going to show that we're trying." That was enough for me. We showed up with a potato salad from the deli and a fruit tray my daughter insisted on arranging herself. "Presentation matters," she said, stacking strawberries in a spiral. James greeted us at the door, hugged me, bent down to high-five her, and then came something I didn't expect. "I saved you a seat," he said, guiding me not to the back corner, not to some overflow spot, but to the table right next to him, front and center. He gestured toward 2 chairs, both of you. Right here. The afternoon passed like a slow breeze. Kids ran through sprinklers in the backyard. Rachel played music from a small speaker. My daughter joined a game of tag like she'd always belonged there, which maybe, deep down, she had. James brought me a beer. We sat quietly for a bit, watching the chaos of family unfold. "I was jealous, you know," he said suddenly. I looked at him. "Of me?" I said. "Why?" "You had something I didn't," he said, eyes on the grass. "You had depth. You showed up every day for her. You built something without needing attention for it. I was out here chasing applause." He exhaled. "And the worst part, I mocked you to feel taller, because I knew I wasn't standing as firmly as you. I didn't speak. Didn't need to. Sometimes a man finally tells the truth, and all you have to do is let it land." That evening, my daughter found me, near the fence staring at the sunset. "Dad," she said, tugging my shirt, "Uncle James said I'm the bravest girl he knows." I smiled. "You are. Do you think he's trying to be better?" I looked across the yard at James, now helping a toddler eat watermelon without wearing it. "Yeah," I said. "I think he's learning." She thought for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll forgive him." On the drive home, she fell asleep in the back seat again. It was a different kind of sleep, not the heavy sleep of exhaustion, but the light kind, the kind that floats, the kind you have when things feel safe. And I realized, so was I. That night, after putting her to bed, I sat down at the kitchen table and finally opened the wedding favor bag we'd been handed weeks ago. Inside was a handwritten note from Rachel. It read, "Dear Derek, the strength of a man is never in how loud he walks into a room. It's in how quietly he carries the people he loves, every day without applause. Thank you for reminding me what kind of man I said yes to, and for showing everyone what a father truly is. Rachel." I folded the note, placed it in the drawer where I kept all her school drawings and birthday cards, not for memory but for reminder, that someone saw, that someone named it. We didn't fix everything overnight, but something happened in those weeks. My brother stopped trying to be impressive. Rachel started reaching out just to say hi. Even my parents, quietly, awkwardly, asked if we wanted to come by for dinner sometime, if you're up for it. I was, because being seen is one thing. Being welcomed back, that's something deeper. That's what healing looks like when it finally has room to stretch its legs. It was a quiet Sunday morning, the kind where the sunlight spills across the kitchen floor, and the coffee tastes a little warmer, even if it's the same brand you always buy. My daughter was at the table, coloring. She was humming a song to herself, some melody she probably heard once on a cartoon, but decided to keep as her own. And I just watched her, watched the way her little fingers held the crayon, the way her eyes focused, the way she paused and then added a flower in the corner of the paper, just because she caught me staring. "What?" she giggled. "Nothing," I said. "I just like seeing you happy." She smiled and went back to coloring, but inside me something stirred. Not sadness, not pride, something deeper, a knowing that one day she'll be older. And this world will try to teach her that love is loud, flashy, conditional, that it comes with rules or receipts or expectations, and I needed her to know better. So that night, after she fell asleep, I wrote her a letter, not to read now, but to read when she's ready, maybe when she's 18, maybe after her first heartbreak, maybe after she wonders if she's too much or not enough for someone to stay. My girl, I've watched you grow from the back seat of my truck to the front row of every day I live. You've taught me more about love than I ever learned in my whole life before you, and one day someone will come along and say they love you. When they do, I want you to remember this. Love is not how someone looks at you in a crowd. It's how they stand beside you when the crowd turns away. Love is not the ring or the dress or the wedding speech. It's the quiet way someone learns your laugh, the way they remember how you take your tea, the way they never make you feel small just to feel taller. You'll see love on TV and in movies, and sometimes it'll look dramatic, filled with shouting and running through airports. But I hope you know, it can also look like sitting in a parking lot with your dad, sipping milkshakes and saying nothing at all. That's love too. You are not a half waiting to be made whole. You are not a question hoping for someone else's answer. You are the whole story. And the man who sees that, the one who dances with you like no one's watching and listens when you speak about nothing, that's the one. Until then, I'll be here, watching, cheering, holding space. You'll always be my girl. Love, Dad. I folded it, tucked it into an envelope, wrote her name on the front, sealed it, and placed it in the same box where I kept the note from Rachel. The one from James, the photo she drew of us with the word home written in pink marker. Because some legacies aren't left in what we give our kids, they're left in what we show them they deserve. Weeks passed. Our lives settled back into rhythm, different than before, better. James and I spoke more often. Rachel came by just to drop off cookies one Friday. My parents even invited me over for dinner. No +1 jokes, no pity glances, just respect. And my daughter. She started drawing more. People always smiling, always holding hands, and in every drawing, without fail, there we were, her and me. One afternoon she asked, "Dad, do you think I'll be a good mom someday?" I paused, then smiled. "I think you'll be amazing." "Because of you?" she asked. "No," I said, "because of you, but I hope I helped." And in that moment I knew. I didn't need to be applauded. I didn't need to be the center of anyone's toast. I just needed to raise a girl who never doubted what love should feel like. Not perfect, but present. Not loud, but steady. Not a spotlight. Just a hand reaching for hers in the dark and never letting go.